Hi Elena. Just looking back to the game on Wednesday and ahead to Sunday, from a supporter point of view, it felt a bit like you were rolling the dice a bit more with that kind of creative attacking play with the team selection. Is that an approach we might see for the rest of the season?
I mean, like if you look at the approach, I think it was mostly about looking at the players that I think has been like doing best in terms of the last trainings, games, and trying to get out the best of that team. And obviously the players were brilliant on Wednesday evening against Hearts. So obviously that's something that if something works, you don't want to change too much, right?
And speaking of kind of the way it was set up, Momo in that six, I know we spoke about it after the game, but she really shone and kind of freed players up to be more progressive with the ball. So how important is it to have a key player in that role who can perform that effectively in the team in that defensive midfield ahead of them?
Yeah, like I said as well, like Momo is incredible good with the ball. She's so tidy and she can play with her right and left, and I think that gives a certain, like, how do you say, like the players, the center backs, I think they feel more comfortable to play it in the central in terms of the quality that Momo has been showing, which also then, and Momo is really good at, just she's good at having the ball, but she's also good at breaking the lines after. So yeah, like I said, Momo has been brilliant for us, and it's going to be really I'm really excited to see even how much better she can get.
It's quite a lot of responsibility because we've seen you sometimes play two defensive midfielders in that role, and just putting that, I guess that's why we're thinking that we're seeing something a bit more attacking with her just on her own, but she's happy to take up that position.
Yeah, I think that is obviously, like you're saying, I think we've played with 2 6s sometimes before because we felt like we could have more alternatives to play, but I think Momo has shown that she can do a lot of that job by herself. But I think it's also like depending on the spaces we want to create, etc. So like Momo has been doing great, and I think in terms of us being free in the central, somebody else can drop and somebody else can go up. So I think all of the 3 players that played on Wednesday are very creative, tidy with the ball, quality with the ball. So hopefully we'll see more of them.
What did you see as well from what were the key things you saw on Wednesday that you want to build on for Sunday?
I think there's many good things that we saw in terms of obviously being 1-0 behind, coming out second half and win with 2-1. It's a big strength that the players showed, and a strength and a strong belief in each other, which was really nice to see. And obviously I think what we've been speaking about a lot is how we react after we maybe lose the ball, or like if something happens that we didn't expect, like what is the reaction and the focus on the next action. I think that was brilliant on the Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And obviously we can talk about the backline. Like I said, I was really impressed of how well we defended, but also how calm and patient we were in the build-up. So, and then obviously on the opposite, we have a lot of good offensive players that was making good decisions in the box, offensive box.
After that win on Wednesday, obviously everyone in the squad and everyone watching was delighted. Have you seen any kind of lift in the energy and the mood of the team in training this last couple of days?
Yeah, I think obviously there's been a pretty intense now week when it comes to having a game on Sunday as well. So I think the most focus has been a bit, today has been more a session where the players that played a lot was in for the first and second part of the training, and then they went in and doing strength. And obviously the rest of them were pushing into creating more load because they didn't play so much on Wednesday. So it's been a good quality, maybe not as intense and long, but I think the players know what to do, especially offensive against Glasgow City.
There's always pressure, obviously, at Celtic to win games, but do you think it feels like maybe the pressures on the two teams going into the fixture on Sunday are quite different pressures, and do you think that might play in our favour on Sunday?
I mean, I think we've talked about it with the staff before in terms of like that performance against Hearts was so good in terms of how players, how well they did in terms of everything: defense, rest defense, repress, build up, decision making. And I think we just need to build on that now and make sure that we perform like we did, because we know that we have a squad with quality. It's just been a bit inconsistent this season, and I think that is the most important thing, that we continue to do what we did on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. I always ask about availability. Have you got any more news on Shannon McGregor and her injury? You said she might be out for the rest of the season.
She will be out for the rest of the season. I don't know exactly what the it is. She's going to see a specialist on Monday. Same thing with Chloe Logan. Who else is maybe not available? Same like before. And Nats didn't train today, so we'll see how she feels tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Elena. I just wanted to ask, obviously, we've seen a good performance in Celtic the past few weeks, and obviously last year post-split, the performance looked really good. Is this the kind of period of time where you think you come into your own as a manager?
Sorry, say it again.
So, like, do you think that this kind of is this end of the season, or is this where you think that you're like the best as a manager? You saw such good performances last year, and then since the split this year, even?
No, I would not say that. I think, like I said before, I think you need to be consistent, and I think we've not been successful in that. And obviously, the response that we had after. Which game was that? It feels like forever ago. Hearts, when we got when we got the loss away at Oriam with 3-1. Like, the response has been good in terms of like not losing after that. But I feel like for us, it's just been that 90 minutes performance, get out the best of the team for 90 minutes, and I think that has been gradually being better and better and better. And obviously against Hearts, I think we were dominant for almost 90 minutes. And I think, like what you're saying, if that's when I'm the best, I don't think so. I think in terms of how the players played, it's a lot about how they came into the game as well, and how they responded, and how much they wanted it, and how much they were together and everything. So I would not say that I am the best at that time or that time, because obviously like we were top joint until February. So I don't think it has anything to do with this is where we come alive or I come alive. I think I'm pretty consistent in how I do things.
So talk about performance at the Hearts. It was good for 90 minutes. But obviously at half-time you go in 1-0 down. What did you kind of say to the players at half-time there to say, nothing?
Obviously, again, we let in a goal in a set play in the second situation, which was a bit frustrated again. But I also went in half-time and said to the girls that it was not a bad half-time. Like, it was not a bad 45 minutes. It was just trying to do some things a little bit better to make sure that we can create more chances to score goals on. And also said that, listen, 45 more minutes to go, let's give everything that we have. And the players did exactly that. So I think we just need to continue working hard and continue believing in the quality that we have.
And speaking of that, I guess motivating these players next 4 games, the title isn't gone, but it's kind of a bit out of your hands. How are you kind of motivating the players to kind of go over the line here?
Motivating is obviously, I think I've said to the players, like, we have 4 more games, and before Hearts we had 5 more games, and we've been talking about every game counts now, and we need to look at it as a final, because in the end, if we have other results with us, because you've seen that it can be different results every week, then we never know. When we play against Motherwell here at Celtic Park, we never know, because then suddenly we can have something to play for, and then we've done everything we can to affect that. But if we haven't, then we cannot blame anyone else than us. So it's all about also how to end the season, because obviously we've had a pretty good season until like February, and then we had these 6-7 weeks where we were not the best. And after that, I think the players have shown the great response in terms of like showing up and getting out the quality and the belief in themselves and teammates. And I think that is something that I really enjoy to see, because it looks like they're enjoying it and they're fighting for each other and they're making sure that we can get out the best out of the team. So with that part is we want to make sure that we end up the season with the quality team that we know that we are.
how important has that shift been? Obviously throughout this season you've mentioned at times that the players seem to not be necessarily enjoying the fact that everyone's chasing them, spoke about that. You're now saying they're going to be enjoying it, they're enjoying this kind of fight. When did that shift happen, and I guess how have you seen that kind of change how the team's been playing?
Can you repeat that again, please?
We're just like, so obviously earlier in the season we spoke a bit about the players struggling with that pressure.
Oh yeah.
But now you're saying that like, they seem to be enjoying it, and they're all kind of a bit more kind of seeming in a better mood almost, as it were. When do you think that kind of shift happened, and how has that changed how you're training and how you're playing?
I think obviously like the training has been really good for a long time. It's just been the taking that quality into the games, and I think obviously this change was probably towards the Hearts game, because then obviously when we didn't get the 3 points the game before that, it just felt like almost like, oh, this is going to be tough for us now. And I think that's maybe when the chase mentality came, like, now listen, we don't have any pressure on us, let's chase. And I think like we've talked about in terms of not maybe being used to having that pressure of people chasing you and players chasing you and teams chasing you, it's now the opposite, that maybe it's more like, how to say, not comfortable, but it's maybe something that we're used to from before. And that's, I think, that you can see in the players, like maybe how they act. I don't know if it's exactly that, but something has changed in terms of that. And what's the most important thing now is just how well we can do the remaining games. And if that's the case, then we need to chase every team and make sure that we get out the best of the team that we have.
Yeah, this game against City anyway, it's going to be another tight one probably. You saw in the Hearts game, a tight game, you were able to kind of tip it in your favour and get the win. What do you think you need to do against Glasgow City to kind of do the same again and tip the scale and go from a tight game that's a draw to a tight game that's Celtic win?
I think it's like I said, I think sometimes when we've conceded, or sometimes when, I don't know, like when we lose the ball or when we do mistakes, or if like if somebody doesn't receive the ball when they want to, I think we've been building that frustration within the team. And I think now, I think the players are better in terms of like focusing on the next action, like we've been talking about within the team, is like how do we react when things happen, like what is the focus should be on the task. And that's something that the players have done incredibly good after we had the chat about what we need to do better.
So is that maybe an element of needing to be more clinical in front of the goal as well?
Yeah, we've been talking about that, and I think that's something obviously that we've talked and we've been saying throughout the whole season in terms of how many chances we create, because you can look at all the games we played against Glasgow City, for example. The game where we lost 3-2 in the cup, we should have been 4-0 up in halftime because we created so many chances. And then the 2-2 game when we played in the league, when we were up 1 and it was 2-1 down, and then we obviously with Mas scoring the 2-2, it's just about how we can control the games better as well, and how we can be switched on for a longer time of the game, which I think that we've shown in the last 3-4 games, especially the game against Hearts.
And it's funny for me, I think the last game you saw a really good battle between Brendan Levere and Emma Lawton. And how important do you think that fight will be in determining the result this weekend?
I think obviously Levere has had an incredible season. There's many players in Glasgow City that have had a really good season, and I think for us it's just making sure that every player has a great fight with the player that they're facing. I don't think Emma against Levere is going to be a specific one. I think obviously it's somebody that Emma needs to obviously have an eye on, if I say it like that. But I think for us it's mainly the collective focus in terms of everybody needs to be at it, and I think that was a big key for the performance against Hearts. I feel like many players were good that game, and that can obviously give a lot to the team.
Obviously, after an unbeaten in April and then the chance of the title again, what's been kind of the cause of this sort of turnaround since March, and is going into this game going to be the real marker of the change in fortune for the team?
I think there's a big example when we talk about ups and downs and struggle. I think I'm not going to say anything about excuses, but we can see an example of Arsenal. I know it's not the same, but Arsenal coming into the Champions League final and then they play against Aston Villa and lose 5-2. I think that is just an emotional switch, and I think that has been for us in terms of when the struggle was in March. I think it was an emotional struggle in terms of like trying to bounce back again, and I think that is something that we need to take with for next season, is how much faster can we bounce after a struggle that we had against Hibs, for example, because that's when it started. So I think we've learned a lot this season in terms of everything. First time being champions, Champions League, how to be switched on and how to bring out the best of each other. That's exactly what I'm going to take with for next part of the season. But I think the players has responded really well in terms of how we've been doing lately, especially the last 4 games where we've been unbeaten.
You've spoken about the impact of that kind of 3-1 loss at Hearts in March, and then to kind of bookend that with the 2-1 victory the other day. Like, what did you kind of learn about yourself in sort of that time as a coach and a person? Because I suppose on that 3-1, even to kind of how it felt to go from kind of 1-0 down to 1-1 to then 2-1 down, it felt like it was maybe done that day, but it feels like things have started to change. What did you kind of learn about yourself as a coach and as a person in that time?
I think for me as a coach, I think like I've said before, obviously my role switched from October to where I am sitting right now, and I think that has maybe been a bit confusion for the players as well in terms of like before when I came here, I was always on the pitch, I was always coaching, and now I have more an overview role where I can more talk individual feedback, where I can, when I don't need to focus on coaching the drills, I can just be more looking at the overview and, like I said, be more helicopter view, like we say in Sweden. And I think that has been something that the players has maybe not adapting to in terms of me always being on it and then not, because like I've said before, I think there's many things that are happening outside when it comes to the football that I've been focused on as well, just like recruitment, board meetings, talking with people higher up, and obviously trying to find a vision of how we need to take the next steps forward. And I think that has been something that I've learned a lot from, because I've not been in that situation many times before in terms of I came here as a head coach, and then obviously now I think I am more than that in terms of that's what I've learned, is probably focus on the controllable things, focus more on the players, and focus more on myself, and make sure that I have energy to give to the team.